always been voyagers, seekers of knowledge, wayfinders who looked to the sun, wind, and stars for guidance. Explorers who have ridden the ocean swells and journeyed the currents to new lands. We are the children of Te Moana Nui a Kiwa, the people of the Pacific. The desire to seek new land, to voyage on the sea and discover, runs deep within the Pacific people. We are the sea. We are the ocean. Oceania is us.
There was a war back in Tonga. Mum's father did a great service for the king. So as a reward, he was asked to carry a pig on his back, and where he start and put down the pig is what he will own in that island. That can't be taken away by the government because this was a gift for his hard work. So he's come from a family who always work hard to serve people. And I think that's really what influenced me. In 1974, I came over at age 15, went to Waitangi Girls. That was a culture shock. Oamaru back then was a white place. There was no other Tongan here. Even Māori people, there weren't that many here. It was difficult for a start, because I was isolated from the family, being a boarder as well. People were speaking too fast. It took a wee while for me to actually translate that in my head. I used to be angry with Mum. Why did you bring me here, you know? Mum, you were so mean to bring me here, you know?
E kai ke ne auhaka te ne mao e mohi tangata. Mana. Tina ko kore pe te whakaonga pe tau wholofola ka taki. Pe koe maa foki te atu ko kakano ia.
It's only now as I am way older that I reflect and look at my mother now and think, wow, what a courageous woman.
Ma'uia, mai whawhetai.
To even leave Tonga and come here, that I would have a better life. Through my mother's desire to help her family back in Tonga, she went to Gillies, it's a steel factories, and asked if she could arrange for her brothers to come and work here. Very good. Yay! They were able to send 6 men at a time. My mother was able to arrange that the men would have their rent paid, power, a certain amount of food, and then the rest was locked away in their bank account. And then when they're ready to leave, take their wages back home. So that's how Tongans actually arrive and stay here.
Our migration to Aotearoa is not new. We have journeyed from every corner of the Pacific for many generations. But while many of our brothers and sisters have made their homes in the north, we have sought a different kind of life.
My dad was a seafarer. In Tuvalu means they leave home for the whole year or 2 or 3, working on foreign vessels. So my dad sacrificed his time being with us just for us to get by. We spent most of our growing up with our mum. She was the one who instilled in us the importance of education. Tōtala sanga, te tua tum tōta mana te lai te langi, whakawhtai mātou, viki tāwai ane mātou tu ingo tapu te whipte nei, a wāk mawhai ne mātou whānau. We were living in Auckland. I think we just had enough of the busyness that we hardly had any time for the children. We might go down to have a look at the Christmas lights. The Christmas lights. Within our community, there was a trend that I didn't like. The kids were dropping out of schools. Education was not, should I say, a priority in those days. My cousin moved down here with her family for work. We came down with 3 boys, aged 7, 5, and 4.
I'm cold.
When we came down, we were sort of like the next lot of Tuvaluan families who moved down here.
We were living in Wellington and my parents separated. My father was very violent towards my mum. I would have been about 5, my older brother would have been about 8, and then the 2 younger ones. So we had come down on the train. It was well after midnight when we arrived in Oamaru, and I remember waking up the next morning, open the front door, and there were sheep like across the paddock. And I'd never seen sheep before because we'd lived in the city. I knew from then that things were going to be a lot different. We were one of the very few Samoan Pacific families that were living in the Oamaru Waitaki area back then. We were always the only Pacific kids in the whole school. So it was quite challenging. It was the first time that I had experienced being called racist names. I remember being called coconut, and I'm thinking, what are these words that these kids are calling me? It was quite difficult, like once you'd found out what the names meant. I think it was still an important part of my own journey, and had I not experienced those things, I probably wouldn't have the resilience that I have now. My mum had a sister living here who was my auntie Tima. My mum, she always tried to put on a brave face, but I always remember she was really strong, and my auntie was always alongside with my mum helping to parent us.
Mom, you can look!
Okay, yeah, hurry up. And you want some tomato sauce? Overnight on the sauce? And I think after she separated from my dad, she needed to find who she was as a person, as a woman, as a Pacific female, and I guess just finding her own way. Back in 1986, my mum and my auntie Tima and 3 other women had formed the Oamaru Pasifika Women's Branch to develop strong women, strong families, strong communities. My mum had to go away for conferences to represent the Oamaru branch. When the woman couldn't attend these conferences, so they would send the oldest daughter. Then we have to represent, like our mothers. So I was exposed to capacity building workshops and leadership programs and things from a young age. And I guess for me, I hadn't realized until I was older that these 5 women, they were developing leaders.
Though we are the children of many different cultures, It is our sameness that brings us together.
I guess when we were growing up, because there are not so many Pacific families, we naturally learned to work together, even if we came from different island groups. And then over the years, our population has increased. So our Pacific community, we estimate that it would be around 15 to even 20% of our Oamaru population. We get a lot of great support from the community. It's taken time to progress and to cultivate, and it's a two-way thing.
Yeah. Pretty cool. So we've got our 2 new staff that are coming from Auckland.
Oh, nice.
From North Coast Intermediate, which has reasonably big Pacifica community.
Yeah.
But she also has Tongan heritage that
That's awesome.
looking to connect back to.
Yeah.
And we've got a classroom teacher coming who's very keen to get involved with our whole Pacifica. So she's Kopai Māori. I've been principal now for 13 years. Currently we've got 45 Pacifica students. If I go back 13 years, we might have had 10 in the school. So it's a growing community, and with that, there's a real vibrancy that comes. What I love about them is they have a sense of community already. Whānau build that community outside of the school, and then when they come together here, there's that connection across, which is really strong and great.
The Pacific identity here in Oamaru, seeing it grown from 1 family, 2 families, 3, 4, 5, 6, to now I don't know all of the Tongans that are here in Oamaru. If you listen to the weather forecast, it's not something that will attract Pacific people to come. People come because of family, jobs. Their wages are not all going to be absorbed in, high rental. I have lived here longer, than I've lived in Tonga. Married to a Palangi as well. I also go to a Palangi church. When I brought up my children, I wanted them to speak English fluently because I thought at that time was the opportunity for them to do well, to ground themselves in the English language. But I now think differently as the grandparent is, way older as well. I have got a daughter-in-law who's part Māori, part Tokelauan, as well as Kiwi. So it is important for them to actually remember that they are made up of different ethnicities that you value. I think really we need to be informed in different ways in this environment. I said to the kids, remember their roots, value their culture, and know how to actually be in the Western world and in the Pacific world as well.
Though we have made new homes and new lives on these shores, we hold on to the stories from our homelands. Because as the world changes and the seas rise, our oral traditions are what keeps our island cultures afloat.
So, what we're going to do, first of all, is introduce ourselves. You say your name, you say how old you are, and favorite food. Belinda, I'm from Auckland.
My name is Talaima. I'm from Oamaru.
You notice those two ladies are not speaking by the rules? Tell us their favorite food, eh? My favorite food is marshmallow.
It is very, very important to retain our culture. My fear is that one day Tuvalu will not be there because of climate change. I knew that my mum's island was eroding at high tide and when it's bad weather. Most of that side of the island swallowed by the sea. The water's coming from the ground up instead of the sea. It's seeping through the ground, which makes the flood worse.
I am grateful that we are around this campfire with each and every one of you tonight. Also hoping better relationships with everybody around me and build more networks. Because the more networks we have, the better opportunities we have for our Tuvalu community.
The islands, I think, will become unlivable. The worst case scenario, there won't be any Tuvalu physically, but the Tuvaluans overseas will be the ones who are going to carry on the legacy of Tuvalu.
Just as the force of a wave is made from many single drops of water, the strength of our people comes from the many branches of our community.
I am very pro-education. When my kids were growing up, my husband was working full-time. I was working just part-time while raising our kids. And I started to study as well. I did my degree for about 8 years, on and off, you know. And then last year I graduated, finally. My eldest son is studying at uni, and I wanted to finish before he finishes. If we step up and get into roles of governance, into roles of leadership, where it's predominantly white spaces, I think that is important for us to have a voice in those spaces.
It was probably 18 months prior to the actual elections that I had decided, alongside our Oamaru Pacific Island network, that we needed representation around this table. I think it was just around decision-making for a whole district, ensuring that we have a voice and that our values, especially our Pacific values, are included in that decision-making process.
First time I met Hana was when she was standing for councils. So she's our first Pacific Island councillor, and she brings with her that incredible representation across the community.
She is very effective at what she does in terms of energising the community and helping bind them together.
Apart from council, most of my time is volunteer. We don't really call it volunteer. It's just what we do, and that's just how we roll. The concept of tautua is the concept of service in our Samoan culture, and you learn that as a young child making cups of tea for people when they come. So that becomes extended to the whole community, and you're not making cups of tea, but you're helping to support them. Okay, so this is the micro-credential course that you completed.
Yeah.
And all the different units that you did, which is awesome. Program credits 23. I'm big on supporting people to build their own capabilities and work towards their goals. And then I think there's some good learning there.
It's got good going on my CV as well.
I think that'll be really good. Oh, I see heaps of opportunities, like that our Pacific youth can utilise. What we'd like to do is kind of provide them a pathway that they can actually flourish and cultivate and still remain in the Oamaru district. When we look at achieving those overall kind of goals, that's when we can kind of all respect each other's identities but still be able to come together and work together towards the greater good, and especially around future succession planning and building capability of our Pacific families.
Instead of labelling Pacific people as hard to reach, my husband says, it's not hard to reach, it's actually services that's hard to reach. My job is mental health nurse in the community mental health service. Being a Pacific person, I'm aware that Pacific people and Māori do not seek help early when it comes to mental health. So my job is to encourage my team here to be responsive, because when they come in, it's because they definitely need the service, and that is that golden opportunity to be able to help them and make a difference and make them feel that they can seek help from the mainstream. That is something I'm passionate about, that I'm able to advocate hard within the workplace, but also outside the workplace as well. We are going to the first combined churches get together today, and education is the theme. Apparently, Oamaru is the fastest growing town for Pacific population. My speech is actually going to be on mental health, using the idea that education is not restricted to academic context.
Mo mea e pe foki kai ngā Tonga. O kui kai ke aha tau rea e tau tolu, e tō lelei, pe tō ofa I he e tau wakai ki he mental health.
Pacific well-being is not about individuals. It is about collective wellness. Even though we're small, we are contributing hugely to the community in a positive way. We certainly are punching above, our weight here. We need to continue to work hard to make sure that, we help our people.
Although we have made our homes here, on these shores, the key to our future lies not in forgetting the ways of our island ancestors, but in ensuring it lives on in the lives of our children.
We come together now and then to do our traditional dance called whātele. Everyone sits on the mat, the men beat the box. The women sit around and the children, and whoever has the talent of dancing will get up and dance. We sing about everyday life, Bible stories, sort of empowerment for the people. I think the crux is everyone coming together and sing together and dance together. For the kids, they see our culture through our eyes. When we took them a few years back, 2017, to Tuvalu for the first time, everything came into reality. You know, whatever we've been telling them, it's sort of like, you know, they were experiencing it. And that was priceless.
We come from many different islands, many strands of migration. We embraced our sameness and celebrated our differences, building from our respect something new. Pacific people of Oamaru, and we stand on the shoulders of giants who went before us.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.